हेलो एवरीवन एंड वेलकम टू दिस लाइव सेशन ऑन जीके, जहां आज हम कंप्लीट करने वाले हैं मीडिएवल हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया। तो शुरुआत करते हैं। सबसे पहली चीज जो मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा वो ये है द इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ सामंतवाद। जिस चीज को हम फ्यूडलिज्म रेफर करते हैं इन यूरोप, वही चीज ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर इन इट्स स्ट्रक्चर वाज रेफर्ड टू एज सामंतवाद इन मीडिएवल इंडिया। तो ये सामंतवाद का मतलब हुआ इनिशियली जब गुप्ता रूलर्स थे, जिस टाइम पे मीडिएवल से पहले वाला टाइम, एंशिएंट पीरियड जिसे हम रेफर करते हैं, तो एंशिएंट पीरियड में द पॉलिटी वाज हाईली सेंट्रलाइज्ड एंड गुप्ता रूलर्स एट द हाइट, एट द पीक ऑफ देयर पावर, they were unrivaled, उनका कोई भी राइवल नहीं था। बट इवेंचुअली ये सामंतवाद का कॉन्सेप्ट आया एंड इट मेंट जिस भी रूलर को किसी भी कोर रीजन के किंग ने डिफीट कर दिया, तो डिफीट करने के बाद रादर देन एनेक्सिंग देयर टेरिटरी, एनेक्सेशन का मतलब कि अटैचिंग दैट टेरिटरी टू देयर ओन टेरिटरी, मेकिंग इट अ पार्ट ऑफ देयर ओन टेरिटरी, उसकी जगह क्या करते थे कि उन किंग्स को रीइंस्टेट कर देते थे, सिर्फ उनसे ट्रिब्यूट्स लेने का, एनुअल ट्रिब्यूट्स का प्रॉमिस ले लिया करते थे। एंड दैट वाज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ दैट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सामंतवाद। तो यही चीज है जो डिस्टिंग्विश करती है एंशिएंट इंडियन पीरियड को मीडिएवल इंडियन पीरियड से, बिकॉज द पॉलिटी इज नॉट सेंट्रलाइज्ड नाउ। हर रीजन के अपने अपने किंग्स हैं जो कि एक सेंट्रल, एक बिगर, मोर पावरफुल किंग को अपनी सुजरेनिटी गिव अप करते थे। दे एक्सेप्टेड द सुजरेनिटी ऑफ the king who was more powerful, who had defeated them once, and after this these people had to attend the defeated kings who were reinstated, उनको जो defeating king था, जो vanquishing king था, उनका कोर्ट अटेंड करना होता था। और यहीं से टर्म आता है सामंत चक्र और द सर्कल, सामंत चक्र जिसे हम बोलेंगे, चक्र मतलब समझ रहे हैं, सर्कल, सर्कल ऑफ ट्रिब्यूटरी किंग्स और प्रिंसेस। ऑल दीज पीपल, they were part of the court of the king who was more powerful. इसका रेफरेंस सबसे पहले एंशिएंट टाइम्स में ही मिलना शुरू हो जाता है इन द टर्म प्रत्यंत नृपति, which was mentioned by समुद्रगुप्त in his Allahabad inscription. किसने लिखा ये Allahabad inscription? We should know that this was the author or the poet was हरि सेन। तो ये अलाहाबाद या प्रयागराज प्रशस्ति जिसे कहते हैं, कमेंडेशन, और इस कमेंडेशन में, इस प्रशस्ति में, this प्रशस्ति और this commendation was written down on one of Ashoka's pillars. अशोका के पिलर्स पे ही ये सारी बातें लिखी हुई हैं, जिसमें समुद्रगुप्त के exploits, how marvelous he was as a general, how he never lost a fight, and along with this there were mentioned some border kings, या जिन्हें हम कहते थे प्रत्यंत नृपति। नृप का मतलब ही होता है king. So this प्रत्यंत नृपति was the border king initially to begin with, but eventually as political instability, political vacuum was created, then these people also, these kings of the border regions, they became dominant and eventually they became part of the Samant Chakra. So as you can see, eventually it came to mean a defeated but reinstated king. Now there were other economic factors as well. जैसा कि हम जानते हैं इस पीरियड में Huns, the most famous Hun in the world is Attila. Attila the Hun, who conquered large parts of Europe, and इन्हीं का अटैक सिल्क रूट पे भी था। So all the trade and commerce was disrupted, और जब ट्रेड और कॉमर्स डिसरप्ट हो जाएगा तो जो उससे मिलने वाले टैक्सेस होंगे वो भी बंद हो जाएंगे। So kings did not have enough money to pay as cash. That is why also this institution of Samantavad or Samant Chakra, it grew. So rather than giving cash payments, what was being given? They were being assigned some fiefs, some jagirs, of which they were kings, और जो लोग डिफीटेड नहीं भी थे, द हाई ऑफिशियल्स, द हाई डिग्निटरीज, जैसे कि जो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर है या जो जनरल है, उसको भी कुछ टाइटल्स, कुछ रिकॉग्निशन चाहिए होता था। ये रिकॉग्निशंस कैसे थे? जैसे कि महादंड नायक, महादंड नायक, महाराज, महाराज, और इन्हीं सारे महाराज के ऊपर जो रूल कर रहा है, जो इनका हेजेमोन है, उसे बोलते थे महाराजा तिराज। महाराजा तिराज या महाराजा धीराज, जिसका मतलब होगा किंग ऑफ किंग्स। जो किंग्स के भी ऊपर रूल करने वाला किंग है, उसे हम बोलेंगे महाराजा तिराज। So the lack of cash payments was another reason why this institution of Samant Chakra it grew. Further, another reason was that there was a certain prestige associated with as many kings who were attending your court. तो जिसके भी कोर्ट में जितने ज्यादा सामंत बैठा करते थे, उसकी प्रेस्टीज, उस किंग की प्रेस्टीज उतनी ही ज्यादा बढ़ जाती थी। इस आइडिया के कारण भी सामंतवाद का इंस्टीट्यूशन, द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ सामंतवाद, इट ग्रू। सो दीज आर सर्टेन रीजंस for India entering the medieval phase from the ancient times. अब जैसा कि हम जानते हैं, up to 6th century Guptas were dominant, but when the Hun invasion will begin, so this polity will be destroyed, this centralization will be destroyed, and after that the last great Hindu kingdom of ancient India will be that of Harshvardhan, who was or who belonged to the Pushyabhuti dynasty. पुष्यभूति डायनेस्टी। सो गुप्ताज का भी जो किंग था, जो इंपीरियल सेंटर था गुप्ताज का, दैट वाज आल्सो सिचुएटेड इन मगध। बट एज हर्ष comes to rule northern India, he will shift the imperial center to Kannauj, which was west of Magad. So now eastern part will have some kings. They will be dominant because the power center has shifted from east to west, and therefore there will be the rise of this king Shashank, who will be a bitter enemy of Harshvardhan. तो हर्षवर्धन शशांक का बिटर एनिमी होगा। शशांक will trouble Harsha by killing his elder brother and capturing, kidnapping his sister. And this is how Harsh, eventually fighting all the adversaries, he came to prominence, he came to power and established his rule. हर्ष के टाइम्स के बारे में हमें पता चलता है मेनली दो सोर्सेस से। एक बाणभट्ट, जो कि लिखेंगे द वेरी फेमस बुक हर्ष चरित्र लिखेंगे बाणभट्ट, एंड अनदर ट्रैवलर, चाइनीज पिलग्रिम, ह्यूएन सांग, जिनकी बुक सी यू की, he will write a book called सी यू की। So these are the texts जिनसे हमें हर्षवर्धन के टाइम्स के बारे में पता चलता है। और ये सी यू की में there is another thing mentioned, although ह्यूएन सांग mentions it very carefully, very cautiously, that he does not disturb his patron Harshvardhan, but he mentions that he was defeated by the Chalukyan king Pulakeshin the second। तो पुलकेशिन हर्षवर्धन को डिफीट करेगा, जिसे सकल उत्तर पथ स्वामी भी कहा जाता था। सकल, दैट मीन्स एंटायर, कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव, सकल उत्तर पथ स्वामी, और द किंग ऑफ द नॉर्दर्न रूट्स। So all these routes will be ruled by Harshvardhan, but he will not be the ruler of entire India. Unlike Mauryas or Guptas, he will only be limited to the north, and in the south there will be Chalukyas who will dominate. इन्हीं Chalukyas के Pulakeshin who belong to the Chalukyan dynasty, Chalukyas, and these Chalukyas were based in Badami. तो इन्हें हम बादामी चालुक्यास भी रेफर करते हैं. बादामी चालुक्य क्यों रेफर करते हैं? बिकॉज चालुक्यन डायनेस्टी, it was at other places as well. When Pulakeshin the second, he will end up defeating or he will end up annexing the Krishna Tungbhadra Doab, तो वो इस टेरिटरी को अपनी टेरिटरीज में एनेक्स करेगा और वहां पे अपने ही भाई को इंस्टेट करेगा. He will settle his brother, and these Chalukyas will be the Chalukyas of Vengi. Chalukyas of Vengi. So there were multiple Chalukyan dynasties. इसीलिए Chalukyas of Badami, it is important to note, it is important to remember that this Chalukyan dynasty, which defeated Harshvardhan, was based in Badami, which is located in Karnataka, as differentiated from Chalukyas of Vengi. Then the geographical extent of Harshvardhan's kingdom was Punjab to northern Orissa, यानी कि इस region से यहाँ तक, and from Himalayas in the west to Narmada in the Vindhyan mountains, below the Vindhyan mountains. This will be the extent of his kingdom. I have already explained this point to you that at the peak of their power, Guptas had no rivals, but Harshvardhan was constantly tormented by Shashank in east, the ruler of Bengal, and Chalukyan dynasty of southern India. Then, after Pulakeshin's victory over Harsh, for 600 years, no kingdom in the north, no northern ruler will venture to capture southern India until the advent of Delhi Sultanate or the Islamic rulers of north. उसके बाद ही ये southern kingdoms conquer करनी शुरू की जाएंगी, starting with Alauddin Khilji, जिसने खुद ही यादवा डायनेस्टी को vanquish किया. Yadavas starting 1303. Thus, what comes to an end was the hegemony of North over South India, and therefore southern Indian kingdoms will acquire their own polity, their own culture. Regional developments will happen through Bhakti movement, जिसको हम अभी आगे देखेंगे. So this feature of ancient India comes to an end with Harshvardhan, with the defeat of Harshvardhan. South India में क्या चल रहा था? So these Pulakeshin, who was a Chalukya ruler, इन्हीं के ट्रिब्यूटरी, अब इनके जो सामंत चक्र में होंगे वो होंगे पल्लवास, चोलास and Pandyas. These will be the tributary kings of Chalukyas. Not Pallavas, only Cholas and Pandyas. They will be the tributary kings, and Pallavas will challenge the authority or dominance of Pulakeshin. और इसी ट्राइपार्टाइट स्ट्रगल जो तीन पार्टीज के बीच में स्ट्रगल हुआ करता था, दिस वाज अ फीचर ऑफ मीडिएवल इंडिया, बी इट नॉर्दर्न इंडिया और सदर्न इंडिया. आपस में ये सारी फाइट्स होते रहती थी, एंड दीज फाइट्स विल इवेंचुअली सैप द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ इंडिया, जिसके कारण अरबिक या इस्लामिक इन्वेडर्स विल बी एबल टू कॉन्कर लार्ज पार्ट्स ऑफ इंडिया, स्टार्टिंग विथ महमूद ऑफ गजनी. कॉन्स्टेंट वॉरफेयर वाज टेकिंग प्लेस. सो जो पल्लवा किंग्स हैं उनका नाम है महेंद्र वर्मन and Narsimha Varman, these people, and this Narsimha Varman will be the one who will end up killing Pulakeshin II, जिसको avenge करेगा, Pulakeshin के death को avenge करेगा इनका son Vikramaditya the first. He will avenge the death of his father and sack the imperial capital of Pallavas, that was Kanchipuram. ये वही कांचीपुरम है which is famous for Kanjivaram silk sarees. Kanjivaram silk sarees, they come from the same place, Kanchipuram, which was a capital of the Pallavas. देन ईस्टर्न और वेस्टर्न इंडिया में मीडिएवल टाइम्स में कौन कौन सी डायनेस्टीज थी which were ruling? So after Shashank there will be the Pala dynasty, Gopal and Dharampal. And you should know that it is Gopal and Dharampal who were, it is said, that chosen by the people. They were chosen by the people to end the anarchy, end the prevailing anarchy, which was termed as Matsya Nyay. Matsya means fish, Matsya Nyay यानी कि मत्स्य न्याय का मतलब होता है द बिगर फिश ईट्स द स्मॉलर फिश। जो भी ज्यादा पावरफुल है वो अपने से कम पावरफुल लोगों को टॉर्चर करेगा, परेशान करेगा और बहुत सारा प्लंडरिंग, लूट, इन चीजों को कैरी आउट करेंगे ऐसे लोग। तो इसी चीज को एंड करने के लिए द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी दैट वाज एक्सपाउंडेड बाय in the West, in Europe, this will be expounded in the book Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes. थॉमस हॉब्स ने एक्सप्लेन किया था कि why a sovereign is needed, but he will do it in the 17th century. तो इंडिया में 7, 8 or 9 centuries before such concept will exist. So India predates such conceptualizations of polity even before the West, and it was the Pala rulers who are said that these sovereigns were instated by the public in order to end the prevailing anarchy or Matsya Nyay. Pala dynasty will be succeeded by the Sena dynasty, और यही Sena dynasty है which will be overpowered by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Bakhtiyar Khilji, he will defeat Lakshman Sen. The Sena dynasty will defeat the king, और सेना डायनेस्टी के जो किंग थे लक्ष्मण सेन, he will be defeated by Bakhtiyar Khilji in 1206 to 10, and that is how the Islamic rule will extend eastward to Bengal province. Until then, until the beginning of 13th century, it will be ruled by Sena dynasty, who will be predated by Gopal and Dharampal, and these were the people who were the last bastion of Buddhism, last bastion of Buddhism. इस डायनेस्टी के कोलैप्स होने के बाद Buddhism will vanish from India and it will only remain in places like China, Central Asia, Japan, but no more in India. Then we have the Rashtrakutas of Malkhed, और जिसे हम मान्याखेट भी कहते हैं, मान्याखेट. So these people, Manyakhet in Western Deccan region, these people will be ruling during the 7th century. 10th century में again Chalukyas of Kalyani will gain prominence. Same Chalukyas who were ruling in Badami, Vengi, eventually their capital will shift to Kalyani, and in the 10th century they will become dominant in Western India. And ultimately there will be Yadava dynasty in the 12th and 13th century, which will be defeated by, ultimately by Alauddin Khilji. Alauddin Khilji. In the next slides, you will get to know what was the order of succession of the Delhi Sultanate, these kings, and there you can finally make a complete picture of what was going on in India during these medieval times. Then Kannauj, after the death of Harsh, यानी कि नॉर्दर्न इंडिया में जो डायनेस्टीज आती हैं आफ्टर हर्षवर्धन will be Yashovarman of the Varman dynasty, but it will be a very short-lived empire as they were troubled by the Hun invasion, and Yashovarman will be defeated by another great king, Lalitaditya, whose empire will also be very, very short-lived, but his greatness lies in the fact that he defeated the Arabs who had conquered Sindh, who were already present in the Sindh region. So Delhi Sultanate was not the first Islamic rule in India. It had begun, Islamic rule had taken roots in Indian soil long before that, in the year 712 CE, when a bridgehead was established by Muhammad ibn Qasim. We will see what incident led to this kind of event. But after Harsh, Kannauj will be ruled by the Gurjara Pratiharas, Pratihari. इसका मतलब होता है gatekeeper. And which gate were they taking care of? They were taking care of the northern region, northern plains, which is the gateway to India from all the mountain passes like Hindu Kush, Khyber Pass, Bolan Pass. यही route है जहां से throughout, starting from ancient times, all the invaders, starting with Alexander, all the invaders will come through this route. So this is called a gateway to India. और इसी gateway के जो rulers थे उन्हें हम नेम करेंगे गुर्जारा प्रतिहारास. इन्हीं के rulers, some of the rulers, or one of the famous rulers is Nagbhat. Then Mihir Bhoj will be another important ruler of Gurjara Pratihara, and he will adopt the title of Adi Varaha, reflecting his Vaishnava credentials. But you also need to know that the Bhoj, who is known for his literary skills, जो अपने poetries और अपने works के लिए जाने जाते हैं, that was not the same Bhoj. This was Mihir Bhoj, and that Raja Bhoj belonged to the Parmar dynasty. इन्हें परमार भोज भी कहते हैं, और इनकी लिखी हुई, इनका कैपिटल धार मध्य प्रदेश में सिचुएटेड था, और इन्होंने जो वर्क्स लिखे, वो वर्क्स जो लिटरेरी वर्क्स हैं, दैट इज तिलक मंजरी, प्रबंध चिंतामणि एंड रसमाला. These will be the works by King Bhoj Parmar, जिनके लिए very often you hear a funny saying that goes कि कहाँ राजा भोज कहाँ गंगू तेली. तो ये वो भोज है, because he was a very well educated literate person, और इन्होंने ही ये सारी literary works लिखी हैं. These two Bhoj will not be the same. Mihir Bhoj will belong to the Gurjara Pratihara dynasty, whereas the poet, the author Bhoj will belong to the Parmar dynasty. Then what is this Bhakti movement? Bhakti movement, before Bhakti movement, so Bhakti movement, anything becomes a movement when it is adopted by a large number of people. Adopted by large number of people. But as we know, nothing can crop up in one single day, in one single century. So the concept of Bhakti was already there in the first century. As we all know that Gita is divided into various chapters, जैसे कर्म योग, ज्ञान योग, भक्ति योग. So already Bhakti term का introduction हो चुका था. It only was waiting for the democratization of this Bhakti, that every human being, even at the lowest strata, they can take part in this Bhakti and they can worship gods. जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, temple entry was not permitted to people of all castes. और God की worship करने के लिए, when this God will come down from temples to everybody's home, to everybody's heart, then we will say that Bhakti movement proper has begun. So it starts in the 6th century with in southern India. इसकी शुरुआत साउथ इंडिया में होती है because of the Alvars and Nayanar saints. Alvars and Nayanar saints. Nayanars will be the devotees of Shiv, whereas Alvars will be the devotees of विष्णु. अब इस भक्ति मूवमेंट में बुद्धिज्म का भी कंट्रीब्यूशन है. There is also the contribution of Buddhism, specifically Mahayana Buddhism. The Mahayana type Buddhism, Mahayana or the great vehicle, the vehicle in which all or large number of people participate, iske against Hinayana Buddhism, that means the lesser vehicle. Hinayana Buddhism will subscribe to whatever original teachings of Buddha were, of not worshipping any god, not making any institution out of it. तो वो लोग Hinayana Buddhism को follow करेंगे. But another Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, how it will contribute to Bhakti? It will contribute to Bhakti by making images. Making images of Buddha. And there will be different schools which will make these images, like the Gandhara school, Gandhar or Kandhar, which is now situated in Afghanistan. And you must have known that with the Taliban invasion, they destroyed a lot of architecture, a lot of such images that were created during starting from the 1st century. तो इन सारे monuments का, UNESCO sites का destruction होगा when Taliban will take over Afghanistan. Gandhara school, there was Mathura school, and there will be a certain stylistic difference between these two schools of architecture, in which Gandhara school, because as you might recall from our class on ancient Indian history, so this Gandhar region was ruled by Indo-Greeks. तो ग्रीक आर्किटेक्चर जिस तरह के अपोलो के या डायनाइसस के इनके इमेजेस बनाए जाते थे, उसी से इन्फ्लुएंस्ड होगा आपका गांधार स्कूल का आर्किटेक्चर in terms of creating images of Buddha, whereas Mathura will be inspired, or the Mathura school will be inspired by the cult of Yaksh. Yaksh or spirits, different spirits, tree spirit, spirit of pond, spirit of river, इन चीजों को यक्ष बोलते हैं, और इस cult से inspired होगा आपका Mathura school. So these images will help in creating images of Hindu gods and goddesses as well, and this is how Buddhism also contributes to Bhakti movement. Now, what is Bhakti? It means, or it comes from the word bhaj, which means to divide. And what is being divided? God himself is being divided. He's brought into each and every person's heart, not just sitting in the temple. तो यहीं से Bhakti movement की शुरुआत होती है. What was it all about? So Bhakti movement emphasized the love of God and childlike devotion to him, as contrasted with Gyan Marg or Karma Marg, right action and right knowledge. Philosophers will say that one should aspire towards having right knowledge, and Brahmins will say that right कर्म, कर्म कांड भी जिसे कहते हैं, तो सही कर्म करने पे फोकस करेंगे. भक्ति मूवमेंट, जो लोग भक्ति मार्ग पे चलेंगे वो कहेंगे कि जस्ट show childlike devotion and absolute love of God, and this is what in essence is Bhakti movement. So there will also be idea of personal God. God as sitting in the temples, uski jagah, this God will be your personal caretaker. He will be with you all the time in your heart, and this will be expressed in beautiful poetry and words. Beautiful poetry of these Alvar and Nayanar saints. So it begins in the 6th century in South India, and 12 Alvar saints, very very famous, and 63 Nayanars. ये लोग जो भी literature, जो भी poetry create करेंगे, this will lead to the development of Bhakti movement in its full bloom. And these saints are said to be the protagonists of Bhakti movement. जो famous saints हैं, उनका नाम आपको जानना चाहिए, अपर, सांबंदर, माणिक्यव सागर एंड सुंदर मूर्ति, these are the famous saints of Bhakti movement. Then their literature was collected in holy scriptures, जिसे हम तिरुमुराई भी कहते हैं, और इसी को हम तमिल वेद भी कहते हैं. Then इसका एक एग्जांपल है तिरुवसागम एंड पेरिया पुराणम. पेरिया पुराणम written by शेक्किलार, शेक्किलार. और because now different people all over the country, अलग अलग लैंग्वेजेस, अलग अलग कल्चर्स, वो इस भक्ति मूवमेंट को और भी डेवलप करेंगे जब अपने अपने वर्ड्स में दे विल एक्सप्रेस देयर डिवोशन टू गॉड. सो रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस विल आल्सो बी डेवलप्ड. जैसे कि ओरिजिनली रामायण वाज रिटन इन संस्कृत लैंग्वेज, बट हमें यह भी पता है कि रामचरितमानस वाज रिटन इन द अवधी लैंग्वेज बाय गोस्वामी तुलसीदास. तो अवधी लैंग्वेज भी डेवलप होगी जब सारे ही एक्सप्रेशंस, सारे ही वर्ड्स हम अपनी लैंग्वेज में फाइंड करने की कोशिश करेंगे. सो इट विल आल्सो लीड टू द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ दैट लैंग्वेज. एंड दिस इज हाउ भक्ति मूवमेंट इज नॉट जस्ट रिलेटेड टू रिलीजन, बट इट आल्सो लेड टू द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस एंड लिटरेचर. इसी भक्ति मूवमेंट में देयर विल बी द यूनिफाइंग फोर्स. यूनिफाइंग फोर्स एडेड बाय शंकर और Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya will actually say that all the different paths to God, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, or worship of Shakti, all these cults will be unified by the effort of Shankar, who will establish 4 different mat or places of these dialogues, debates, and worship all across India. And that is how Hinduism will be united through sacred geography. All these places will be visited by people from all across India, also leading to economic exchanges. Then after him will come Ramanuj or Ramanujacharya. रामानुजाचार्य से रिलेटेड इंपॉर्टेंट बात जो आपको जाननी है वो ये है कि वेरी फेमस स्टैच्यू ऑफ इक्वालिटी, स्टैच्यू ऑफ लिबर्टी which is in New York, statue of unity in Gujarat that belongs to Sardar Patel. Sardar Patel, because he unified India, protected India from the Balkan plan of Lord Mountbatten. सरदार पटेल के लिए जो मूर्ति बनी है that is called statue of unity. और statue of equality is the statue of Ramanujam. It is the second tallest sitting statue in the world, and it is located in Andhra Pradesh. Telangana now. So statue of equality belongs to or is the statue of Ramanujacharya. So Shankar will be the exponent of Advait Vedanta, Advait, non-dualism, philosophy of non-dualism. So he will say that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, God is the only truth, Brahma is the only truth, and everything else is Maya. Whereas Ramanujacharya, Advait, non-dual, he will be the exponent of Sri Vaishnavism, or what we also call Vishisht Advait or qualified monism. He will say that, okay, it is correct that God is non-dual, there is only God, but even in the world, there is the existence of Bhagwan, which we can worship. Although Brahma is not in any form, he is formless, he is shapeless, but in the world, we can worship this God in the form of Vishnu, and he will start the tradition of Sri Vaishnavism. Then another Bhakti saint will be Ramanand, who will be the follower of Ramanuj, and he will practice in Allahabad. His seat will be Allahabad, Banaras, and Agra region. So we see that there is a direct continuity starting from this period up to a very long time till the advent of Mughals in the works मुगल टाइम पे ही गोस्वामी तुलसीदास एग्जिस्ट करते थे जिन्होंने रामचरितमानस लिखी. So there is a direct tradition of these saints, and one will learn from another, just like Aristotle was the pupil of Plato, and Plato was the pupil of Socrates. उसी तरह से ये सारे saints will be in one continuous order. There will be an unbroken tradition of bhakti. Then it was Ramanand whose disciples were Kabir, Raidas, Narhari, and Pipa. Then Gyan Leela, Yog Chintamani, and Ramcharan Paddhati. These will be the works of Saint Ramanand. Then he was the first to employ vernacular medium to spread his ideas in the north. इसी तरह से जैसा कि हमने बात की that Bhakti movement will also lead to the development of regional languages, regional culture. Then it was in the same Bhakti tradition that Basava or Basaveshwar, he will start the Lingayat sect, Lingayat movement, which will be totally against caste, and they will believe in worshipping Shiv in his Shivling form. So, as we see, Basaveshwara was the founder of Lingayat sect during the 12th century, and his corpus, his literature will be known as Vachan Sahitya, Vachan literature. So keep this in mind. This Basaveshwara will be existing during the Kalachuri dynasty. Now, these are certain saints. These are the Bhakti saints from different regions of India. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he will be in Bengal during the 15th, 16th century, and he is famous for popularizing kirtans, in which he himself danced ecstatically like Radha and Krishna, imitating the love of Radha for Krishna. And it is also said that this Radha and Krishna depict the soul's search for God. Radha is the soul who is looking for God, Shri Krishna. Then Shankar Dev. Now Shankar Dev's contribution is well known to Assamese people. He started many new kind of literatures and dance and other such Nritya and Natak institutions. So some of these are Borgeet, Ankiya Nat, Satriya. Satriya is a very famous dance form of Assam. So we must know that it was started by Shankar Dev. Then Vallabhacharya, a South Indian Brahmin who will take his seat in Banaras, and he will worship Vishnu as Srinath ji. तो आज भी आप देखेंगे तो जिस तरह से साउथ इंडियन मूर्तियां बनाई जाती हैं उसी तरीके के श्रीनाथ जी की भी मूर्तियां बनाई जाती हैं. एंड वी नो दैट इट वाज स्टार्टेड बाय वल्लभाचार्य. देन सूरदास, वेरी फेमस, a blind person, a blind saint, but he will write exquisitely beautiful poetry. And his seat is also Banaras, the region of Braj Bhasha. Braj language will be propagated by him. Tulsidas, Goswami Tulsidas, his seat will be Chitrakoot and Banaras, and he will write the very famous Ramcharitmanas, read all across northern India. Then in Maharashtra region, there will be Namdev, Sant Dhyaneshwar, and in the Punjab region, Guru Nanak was also in the Bhakti tradition. He will shun all kinds of karmakand, and he will say that just be devoted, just be simply devoted towards God and worship God in your heart. Born in Talwandi, and he will establish Dera Baba Nanak. Now, after all this tumultuous period, there will begin Islamic rule in northern India. I have already told you that Delhi Sultanate was not the first Islamic empire in India. It had begun long before that. So what happened? During this time period, the king of Sri Lanka, he sent some orphan Muslim children. He was sending them to the Caliph of Iraq. But meanwhile, en route to Iraq, some pirates will invade that ship, end up slaughtering those children. So the Caliph of Iraq will ask the king of Sindh, the Shahi dynasty of Sindh, who were ruling in the Sindh region of India. He will ask to punish those pirates, and the king of the Hindu Shahi dynasty, he will not respond to these requests of the Caliph. And in order to retaliate for this non-response or unresponsiveness, he will send his son-in-law Muhammad ibn Qasim, who will end up conquering Sindh. Then in 725, other commanders, other Arab commanders, they will establish or they will carry out their campaigns as far as Kathiawar in Gujarat, and they will also reach southern Rajasthan. At this time, at this point of time, there were still strong rulers like Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, Gurjara Pratiharas, and they will stop their expansion because the warfares had not yet sapped the strength of North India. But eventually, by the time of Mahmud of Ghazni, they will be very much weakened, and that is why Mahmud of Ghazni, also because of his superior warfare, because of having trained soldiers, horsemen, archers, because of these people, as well as because of the lack of unity in northern India, because of constant tripartite struggle, India will lose its strength. Northern India will be very, very weak, and the Chola rulers, they will be much far situated from all these events. That is why there will be no one coming to protect northern India. And Mahmud of Ghazni will plunder the Shahi dynasty first, then the Chandelas of Bundelkhand, situated in Khajuraho. The temples of Khajuraho, you must know, were built by the Chandela dynasty. Firdausi and Al-Biruni will belong to the court of Mahmud of Ghazni, whereas Firdausi will write the book called Shahnama. Shahnama, which is the most comprehensive accounts of all the kings of Islamic rule. Until the advent of Europeans, this will be the most comprehensive accounts of all the kings. And Al-Biruni will write Kitab al-Hind. Kitab al-Hind will be written by Al-Biruni. These two people were in the court of Mahmud of Ghazni. About Mahmud of Ghazni, we have already spoken in last class. And if you do wish to know more about Mahmud Ghazni's exploits, his invasions, what was the time period, please watch the videos, the previous videos, part 3, to be specific, of medieval Indian history. Now, this Delhi Sultanate, it actually begins with the invasion of Muhammad. Don't be confused. The ruler who comes at this point of time in the 12th century, Muhammad will start his invasions in the 12th century, whereas Mahmud of Ghazni, he will be carrying out his plunder, his raid during the 11th century. Now, what does this word military Darwinism means? Military Darwinism means survival, just like Darwin said, theory of natural selection and survival of the fittest. Similarly, military Darwinism means the most powerful, the most adept military people will be able to survive, will conquer those who are lesser compared to these people. So that is what military Darwinism means, and it is a term used to explain why Ghaznavids or the Ghurids, they succeeded against Indian kings. So Indian kings, when they fought the wars, war was sport. War was sport for Rajputs. And they will adhere to a code of honor. They will not attack during the night. They will not kill somebody who has already been disarmed. तो ऐसे लोगों पे ये लोग अटैक नहीं करेंगे. जबकि Ghaznavids, Ghurids, they will be charged with a religious zeal, and also they will not be following such kind of code of honor. That is why they will be victorious. Apart from other factors, like all of these rulers, they started their career as slaves. So in times pe, these rulers, Islamic rulers, they used to buy children when they were very young and induct them into military service. They were trained throughout their life, starting from childhood, and they became expert horsemen, expert archers, and their entire training will be like soldiers all throughout their life. Whereas in case of Rajputs, they will hire their relatives, they will hire people from different castes, and it will be very, very dangerous for them to go against these people who were charged with religious zeals, who will be charged with the feeling of jihad or holy war. These people will also vie the great wealth of India, whereas these people, Rajputs, it will be very difficult for their mercenary army. Mercenary army. There is a difference between mercenary army and standing army. What is this difference? So whereas standing army will get a regular payment, their entire task will be one and singular task of fighting. They will be soldiers, trained soldiers. उसे कहते हैं standing army, which are always ready to fight in a war. Whereas mercenary army का मतलब हुआ कि जब आपको कोई वॉर के लिए जाना है, आपने सारे लोगों को खबर भेजी, आपने बताया कि there is a great wealth to be looted, to be plundered, और इसीलिए क्या करते हैं कि आ जाओ, be a part of this militia, be a part of the military. So rather than having mercenary armies of the Rajputs, these Ghaznavids and Ghurids, they will have standing armies who will be trained throughout their life for fighting wars. That is why they will be able to defeat Rajput kings. Now his career, the career of Muhammad of Ghuri, of Ghur region, or Muhammad Ghori जिसे कहते हैं, will begin with the capture of Multan. Now Multan was already being ruled by Islamic kings, but they were tolerant also as a strategy. But when Muhammad of Ghur will arrive, he will first defeat the rulers of Multan. Then the very famous Battle of Tarai, in which Muhammad of Ghur will fight against Prithviraj Chauhan. And in 1191, he will be defeated, but he will come back the next year with 10,000 trained archers on horseback, and he will be able to defeat Prithviraj Chauhan. Also, because of the non-cooperation or warfare with Jaichand of the Gahdwal dynasty. Jaichand Rathod of the Gahdwal dynasty. Gahdwal dynasty. And Jaichand, the name Jaichand becomes synonymous with being a traitor because it was because of the non-cooperation and the cunning strategies played by Jaichand that Prithviraj Chauhan will lose in battle with Muhammad Ghuri. Then in 1193, he will vanquish the mighty Gahdwal dynasty. So Jaichand thought that the danger will be over after he helps out Muhammad Ghuri, but eventually he himself will be defeated. The mighty Gahdwal dynasty will be defeated, and this is how the conquest of northern India will be complete. Then Muhammad Ghuri, he will install Qutbuddin Aibak, another slave. That is why we know this dynasty, starting with Qutbuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, and Razia Sultan. We know them as slave dynasty or Ilbari dynasty. So he will be installed in Delhi as its viceroy, and he will die at a certain point. He will be killed because of a plot, and therefore Qutbuddin Aibak will begin the Ilbari dynasty or the slave dynasty, and entire north will be ruled by him. Then Qutbuddin Aibak and Iltutmish, their achievement is that they established an empire which was as large as that of Harsha or even some of the later Gupta rulers. So this was the foundation of Delhi Sultanate. Now, when we talk about Delhi Sultanate, we must know that Delhi actually has 8 cities. What we today know as Delhi and New Delhi. This comprises of 8 different cities. And initially, it was just a Rajput stronghold of the Tomar dynasty, Anangpal Tomar. He will establish Kila Rai Pithoda or the Lal Kot Fort, which is today the Red Fort. So, this complex will initially belong to Tomar king Anangpal. Then will be established the small city, township or stronghold of Mehrauli. Then we have the Siri region. This will be built by Alauddin Khilji to protect from Mongol onslaught. And one of the achievements, one of the very famous achievements of Alauddin is that he was able to repel the Mongol invasion Or this is one of the counterfactuals of history. What if he had not been there and there was a Mongol invasion? It might have been so that India would have been ruled by the Mongols for a very long time. But for Alauddin Khilji, had Alauddin Khilji not been there, India would have been ruled by Mongols. So it was in order to protect India or protect his own empire from the Mongol onslaught that he built the fort of Siri. Then there will be Tughlaqabad, built by Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq in 1321, the founder of Tughlaq dynasty, which will have other rulers like Firoz Shah, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and then Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq is also referred to sometimes as the Mad King because he will try out many experiments. Muhammad bin Tughlaq So he will carry out two of his most famous experiments that failed were introduction of paper currency or introduction of copper coins. But what will happen is that people will start to imitate these coins, manufacture these coins from copper at their homes, and that is why there will be this experiment will fail. Then his other experiment was shifting the imperial capital from Delhi to Devagiri, which was the capital of Yadava dynasty in the past. So he will shift the capital from Delhi to Devagiri. But even this experiment will fail because he will have to force large number of people to leave their homes and shift to Devagiri. But eventually it will result in a massive fail. And it was during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq that Ibn Battuta visited India. He was also appointed as a Qazi or judge by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Then we have another city known as Firozabad, established by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Firoz Shah Tughlaq did not carry out many such experiments. He tried to maintain the stability of the empire. Then we have Shergarh, established by Sher Shah Suri, what is known as in the Old Fort region, Purana Kila, Old Fort, or should be written Purana Kila, near the bank of Yamuna, presently situated near Pragati Maidan. Then there was Shahjahanabad, established by Shah Jahan. What you today see, Chandni Chowk, Red Fort, that region was established by Shah Jahan. And finally, the eighth city, which was established in the 20th century by the British, known as New Delhi. So this was a brief history of the different cities of Delhi. The Sultanates of Delhi. First, as we already saw, Ilbari dynasty, starting with Qutbuddin Aibak. Qutbuddin Aibak. Then, after the dethronement of Razia Sultan, mighty noble Balban, he will capture power, but there will be no one succeeding him. His dynasty will not continue, and Khiljis will be made the ruler of, in place of Balban. They will replace, or they will be the next dynasty in line. Then these Khiljis, Alauddin Khilji. So Alauddin Khilji's rule will come to an end in 1316. He will be succeeded by two of his useless sons, and they will be replaced by the nobles, and Tughlaq will be instated, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Then there will be Sayyids, and finally there will be Lodhis, and it was against these Lodhis that Babur Well, fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi. First battle of Panipat in the year 1526. The first battle of Panipat will be fought between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. If I've already covered the Mughal history, the Mughal period in the previous video, and do watch it in order to know about the Mughal kings, the Mughal Empire. So with this, we come to an end of medieval Indian history, and in the next class, I will be covering modern Indian history, starting with the later Mughals or Aurangzeb. Thank you for now. Have a good day.